Welcome to African Kingdoms, the new official expansion to Age of Empires 2 HD Edition, which can be purchased on Steam. African Kingdoms adds 4 new civilizations, and the focus of this video is going to be on the Berbers. You can find more information and gameplay on all of the new civilizations in the video description below. I will also have a link to my Twitch TV page where I stream Age of Empires 2 and other games regularly. So the Berbers are classified as a cavalry and naval civilization. They have 2 unique units, 2 unique technologies, and 3 civilization-specific bonuses. The first topics that I'm going to cover are their unique units and technologies, starting with the Camel Archer. The Camel Archer is a mounted cavalry archer that has an attack bonus against other cavalry archer units. This means that the Camel Archer deals bonus damage to units such as the Cavalry Archer, Genitours, Mongol Mangudai, Korean War Wagons, and the Indian Elephant Archer. Keep in mind though that the Camel Archer is not strictly a unit for countering other cavalry archers, but rather it has good enough combat stats that it has potential as a standalone unit. Compared to the regular Cavalry Archer and their heavy counterpart, the Camel Archer has significantly better combat stats, but it's important to note that the Camel Archer is no Mangudai. Without the insane attack speed of a Mangudai or access to Parthian tactics, the Camel Archer is a bit less strong in regular combat, but it is still a good unit overall. The Camel Archer can only be created at the castle, and it costs 50 wood and 60 gold each. Since this unique unit is considered to be both a camel and a cavalry archer, the Camel Archer can be upgraded by researching technologies such as bloodlines, husbandry, fletching, padded archer armor, conscription, ballistics, chemistry, and the Berbers' unique technologies, Kasbah and Maghrabi camels. Kasbah can be researched in the Castle Age, and it makes your teammates and your own castles create units and research technologies 25% faster. This means Camel Archers can be created extremely quickly, especially once you are in the Imperial Age and you research conscription. Since Kasbah is available in the Castle Age and it works with your teammates' castles as well, it encourages your allies to utilize their unique units throughout the course of the game. The Berbers' other unique technology is Maghrabi camels, and it is exclusive to the Imperial Age. This upgrade makes your Camel Archers and Heavy Camels regenerate roughly 1 HP every 4 seconds. In comparison, the Viking Berserk regenerates 1 HP every 3 seconds, and researching Berserker Gang improves that regen to approximately 1.5 HP every 2 seconds. This means that Maghrabi Camels grants significantly less healing than Berserks have. But the important thing to keep in mind is that this bonus applies to both Camel Archers and Heavy Camels as well. In addition, Camel Archers have the benefit of being fast-ranged units, so with careful micro, you can get great value out of even just a little bit of healing. Both of these technologies are difficult to evaluate at a glance, and I look forward to experimenting with each of them. The real question on my mind is, does Kasbah create opportunities for other civilizations to rush out their unique units, or does it merely strengthen civilizations such as the Spanish and Mayans, who already do that? Kasbah is cheap enough that it might open up room for new strategies, but it also requires that the Berber player gets a castle first. If I had to guess, I would say it's more likely that Kasbah has a larger impact in the Imperial Age, where amassing unique units like Elite Mangudai, War Wagons, and Elephant Archers are already powerful strategies. If you have a Berber player on your team and they research Kasbah, you'll be able to mass up an army of your unique unit incredibly quickly, and I don't think that bonus should be underestimated. Now onto the Berbers' second unique unit, the Genitour. This unit can be created at the Archer range in the Castle Age, and it is classified as a mounted skirmisher. The Genitour can be upgraded to Elite Genitour in the Imperial Age, as well as through technologies such as bloodlines, husbandry, fletching, padded archer armor, ballistics, and chemistry. The Genitour is a strong counter to archer-type units, and it is also one of the few military units in the game that do not cost gold. Contrary to what the tooltip says here, both the regular Genitour and the Elite Genitour cost the same 50 food and 35 wood to create, which is twice the food cost of a regular skirmisher, but the same price in wood. You definitely get what you pay for though, as the Genitour boasts great combat stats with a higher HP, attack, and movement speed, but slightly lower range as well. The improved combat stats means that Genitours have potential as a standalone raiding unit, but they are still primarily a unit that is best used to counter enemy archers due to the Genitour's lower attack stat. This brings us to the Berbers' team bonus, which gives your teammates the ability to also make Genitours from their own archery ranges. This makes the Berbers one of the most team-focused civilizations in Age of Empires 2, as having one on your team gives you the option to counter enemy archers with Genitours, and Kasbah improves the strength of any unique unit strategy. Now that I have covered the Berbers' unique units and technologies, it's time to move on to their civilization bonuses. The first one is that their villagers move 10% faster, and this bonus is incredibly difficult to evaluate at a glance. Throughout your average game of Age of Empires 2, your villagers will spend a lot of time walking from one point to another. Every second spent moving is a second that is not spent gathering resources or constructing a building. Expert players recognize this problem, and they will try their best to minimize the amount of walking that their villagers have to do. Some examples of this would be keeping their sheep underneath the town center and luring wild boars. Keep in mind that one of the things that makes the Aztecs so strong is that their villagers carry +5 resources, so they spend much less time walking overall. The extra movement speed on wheelbarrow and handcart are also part of the reason why those technologies boost your economy so much. But actually, it turns out that most of the economy boost comes from the extra carrying capacity. So just how good is villagers move 10% faster? To answer this question, I originally ran a bunch of different tests. However, the numbers don't really show how useful this bonus actually is. In this test, you can see a Berber villager, a Huns villager, and then an Aztec villager all walking 2 tiles to gather from a forage bush. The Berber villager ended up finishing her forage bush around 7 seconds sooner than the Hun villager. However, the Aztec villager ended up finishing her forage bush around 20 seconds sooner than the Hun villager. This means that purely economically, the Berber bonus is decent, but it is significantly weaker than top-tier economic bonuses like the Aztecs carrying +5 resources. Still though, in a normal game, the distance your villagers walk while gathering resources will vary, and this makes the Berber bonus difficult to evaluate purely in terms of its effects in your economy. While it does provide a small yet significant boost to your resource gathering, moving 10% faster also helps your villagers in other equally important ways too. For example, Berber villagers can move across the map quicker, which helps with things like luring a wild boar, farming, walling choke points, dropping forward watchtowers on your opponent, or just seizing map control. The extra movement speed also makes Berber villagers more resistant against rushes, since they are able to outrun enemy infantry units with ease and even chase them down. There is one thing for certain about the Berbers' first bonus. While the impact of it may vary from game to game, 10% bonus villager movement speed is actually quite powerful, and the impact of it only goes up as the game drags on. In the end though, this bonus is not nearly as strong as many of the other top-tier economy bonuses, but it is much better than it appears because it helps in all types of situations. It is not just an economy bonus. Now for some of the more straightforward aspects of the Berbers. The next thing on the list is stable units cost 20% less, starting from the Castle Age. This is actually a great bonus, and it makes the Berber Night Rush incredibly powerful. For every 4 knights a different civilization would make, the Berbers can field out 5 knights for the same cost. Having an extra few knights can easily turn the tides of a Castle Age fight, so its impact cannot be underestimated. Once the Berbers reach the Imperial Age, this bonus becomes substantially weaker, because they critically do not have access to paladins. But being able to spam 20% cheaper hussars is still very useful. And now onto ships move 10% faster. Like with the forage bush test I showed before, this bonus does actually apply to fishing ships, which means that you will be gathering fish a bit faster than your opponents. The difference is going to be more substantial here compared to the forage bush test, because you are going to gather from fish that are further than 2 tiles away from your dock on average. In this test, you can see a Berber fishing ship, a Huns fishing ship, and then a Japanese fishing ship, all traveling 6 tiles to gather from a school of tuna fish. Sometimes I've noticed that one food gets left behind. I'm not sure if this is a bug with HD or not, but I checked and it doesn't seem to impact the results. Anyway, the Berber fishing ship ended up finishing its fish around 10 seconds sooner than the Huns fishing ship. However, the Japanese fishing ship ended up finishing its fish around 24 seconds sooner than the Huns fishing ship. Keep in mind that all of these economy tests were done in the Dark Age, because that is when fishing matters the most. However, in the Dark Age, the Japanese fishing ship only works 5% faster than normal ones, meaning that the Berbers' 10% faster movement speed bonus is actually dramatically weaker than a mere 5% faster work rate. The lesson to be learned here is that if you view the 2 speed increases as purely economic bonuses, then they appear to be a tad weak on paper. However, in practice, faster moving ships can help in many combat situations as well. Whether you're chasing down enemy war galleys with your fire ships or trying to get that demolition ship just close enough to explode, this bonus has the ability to turn the tides in any close naval battle. Lastly, it is also important to note that when you are scouting with the galley or fishing ship, you will be able to do it much quicker than your opponent. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go over everything in each civilization's tech tree, but I will highlight many of the most important ones. In terms of the Berbers' tech tree, they have a pretty good archer range, but they crucially lack arbalist, ring archer armor, and Parthian tactics. This means that the Berbers will have to mostly rely on their hand cannoneers, skirmishers, and genitours for ranged units, and I think that will mostly be enough. Onto the barracks, the Berbers do not have halberdiers, but heavy camels are still a strong substitute as a counter to cavalry. A lack of ring archer armor and halberdier will help keep the Berbers under control in the late game with no gold. One of the more notable parts of the Berbers tech tree is actually the exclusion of Paladin. Without access to Paladins, the Berbers will have difficulty leveraging their stable unit discount in the later stages of the game. Still though, cheaper Hussars, heavy camels, and cavaliers is nothing to sneeze at, and the Berbers' Castle Age cavalry cannot be underestimated. Since the Berbers have bloodlines, their discounted Night Rush will be very strong, and cheaper Hussars in the late game can be a powerful raiding force as well. Onto the dock, we can see that the Berbers oddly lack shipwright, despite being classified as a naval civilization. Despite that, the Berbers do have all of the other important upgrades at the dock, and they have access to all of the late game naval units. Combined with 10% faster ship movement speed, the Berbers will still be a strong civilization on the water. It's worth noting that the Berbers do not have access to keeps. I know that it might not seem like much, but African kingdoms did add a new technology at the university called arrow slits. Arrow slits increases the attack damage of towers, and it could potentially make building keeps a viable option in the later stages of the game, but we'll have to see how that plays out in practice. Moving on to the monastery, the Berbers lack sanctity and block printing, the former of which will weaken their monk rush on maps like Arena, but the Berbers will likely do fine without either of those technologies. Their weak early Imperial Age is also reinforced by not having access to siege rams or siege onagers. Thankfully though, with access to bombard cannons and siege engineers, their siege line should be good enough in general. The last important part of their tech tree will be the lack of two-man saw, but having access to crop rotation is generally more important for bolstering your late game economy. Overall, the Berbers are a very difficult civilization to evaluate at a glance. Normally I wouldn't go into so much detail about their bonuses, but these bonuses are not as simple as they may sound, and numbers alone cannot do them justice. I think it is too easy to glance at the improved movement speed and either see it as game-breaking or weak, but the reality is that it is actually somewhere in the middle. If we look at the two movement speed increases as purely economic bonuses, then they do not seem that powerful. But they also have a strong impact in a wide variety of military situations as well. In addition to a reasonable boost to your economy, faster movement speed has a wide variety of applications that cannot be underestimated, but it does not seem overpowered. Another important thing to note is that their bonuses either do not apply in the feudal age or are relatively low impact from an economic standpoint. Most of the most powerful civilizations in Age of Empires 2 rely on their dominant early game to snowball a match, but the Berbers will not be able to keep up with them early on. Similarly, once the match reaches the Imperial Age, the Berbers lack immediate high impact units like the Paladin, so they might struggle to close out a game early. These weaknesses mean that the Berbers will be the weakest in the Dark Age, Feudal Age, and early Imperial Age. However, the Berbers will be incredibly strong in the Castle Age thanks to the power of their cheaper knights, and the Berbers will also become dominant in the later stages of the Imperial Age as well. Camel Archers fit nicely with the Valley theme because if they can stay alive, then they will heal back up to full HP over time. The Berbers should be thought of as an adaptable civilization with access to a wide variety of counter units that can grind out wins in the later stages. Should the game drag on, the Berbers can spam cheap Hussars and give their entire team access to the powerful Genitour. In a world with no gold, the Berbers are a force to be reckoned with. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like rating as well as a comment below. I always read all of the comments, even if I don't get a chance to respond to them individually. Feel free to let me know what types of African Kingdoms videos you would like to see. If you're looking for more Age of Empires 2 content, then you're in the right place. My channel has all sorts of Age of Empires 2 videos, videos in African Kingdoms, as well as content relating to other games. Last but not least, I do livestream on Twitch TV regularly, and I'd love to have you as part of our wonderful community. You can find my livestreaming schedule on my Twitch TV page by scrolling underneath the video player there. I update it every few days, and the best way to know when I'm streaming next is that schedule. My live streams are also a great place to ask me questions, and for community streams, it is the best place to play with or against me. As always, I appreciate the support, and I'll see you all in the next video.